I never thought that organizing our annual ski trip would end with half the group calling me ruthless. But here we are, scrambling for backup lodging and wondering if I went too far. Every February for the last 5 years, 6 of us have rented a mountain chalet in Vermont. Me, Jordan, 32, my best friend Claire, 31, her boyfriend Mike, 34, our friend Lena, 30, her partner Sam, 29, and our mutual pal Ethan, 33. We split food, gas, drinks, everything equally, and rotate. Who books the cabin? This year was my turn, so back in June I trawled rental sites, found the perfect place, 6 bedrooms, hot tub, wood stove, and paid the $1,500 deposit from my savings. The total cost was $6,000 for the week, so each friend owed me $1,000 by December 1st. Everyone confirmed by July, no issues. I reminded them in October, November, and at Thanksgiving dinner. By November 30th, Claire, Lena, Sam, and Ethan had paid. Mike, Claire's boyfriend, confessed he'd forgotten. I reminded him too, and by December 3rd, he Venmo'd me his $1,000. Everything was set. Then on December 10th, I got a text group message from Claire at 10 p.m. Claire, hey everyone, excited for Feb. BTW, I asked my cousin Rachel, you remember her from Summer BBQ, if she could crash on the couch. She's between apartments and it'd only be for a night or two. Hope that's cool, I groaned quietly. Rachel is lovely but had cancelled on us last year at the last minute, and then left her dishes in our sink for weeks. I replied, me. Hey, Rach is welcome in a pinch, but I'm nervous about insurance bars legal stuff. Cabins. Only insured for 6 guests. Also, I can't afford another 1K. Deposit's non-refundable now, Claire answered. Claire, no worries, she's just crashing one night. I'll cover her part. I said okay for one night only, but you still owe me $166 extra for the split. And she replied, Claire, chill, it's family. I got this. I trusted her. Fast forward to January. 2 weeks before the trip, the cabin owner emailed to confirm final head count. They had a strict no parties over 6 rule. I emailed Claire asking her to let Rachel know to RSVP and settle payment. Silence. Then, 2 days later, cabin owner, email. Hello Jordan, we've had a situation. There will actually be 7 adults staying, not 6. Unfortunately, our insurance only covers 6 people. We can add a 7th for an extra $500 cleaning and security fee. Please advise ASAP. My heart sank. I forwarded the email to the group chat. Me. Guys, we need to sort this. The owner is charging $500 extra for a 7th adult. Claire, is this... Rachel, you pledged to cover her share. I'll need $500 from someone by Jan 20 or we lose the booking. At 8 p.m., Claire wrote, Claire, oh shit, really? Sorry, I thought they'd never notice. I'm on night shift this week and can't Venmo easily. I'll do it Sunday. Sunday came and went, no payment. I texted individually. She promised Monday. Monday came and she said her card was over the limit. I'll do it Tuesday. Tuesday, she blamed her bank. By Wednesday, it was clear she wasn't paying. Meanwhile, I'd already booked flights for everyone and arranged car rentals, non-refundable. If we lost the cabin, everyone would lose their flights and I'd lose my $1,500 deposit. I panicked. So Thursday morning I messaged, me, Claire, I'm really sorry, but I can't hold this on faith. I paid the $500 today to save the booking. I moved money from my rent account, we'll fix later. Please send me $500 by end of day tomorrow, or I have to remove Rachel from the roster. I heard crickets. By 5 p.m., me, private message. Claire, I need that $500, please. At 10 p.m., she texted, Claire, you're such a control freak, it's one night. I said I'd pay. Why are you harping? I replied, me. Because I can't afford to lose thousands on flights and deposit. I hoped you'd understand. If I don't get the money, I'll have to ask Rachel not to come. Silence. The next morning, she posted on Instagram stories a selfie with the caption, can't wait for winter getaway with my crew. I felt furious and texted, me, seriously? You're posting like everything's fine but haven't covered Rachel's fee. She replied, Claire, I covered it IRL, just not online, relax. But when I checked, no payment had arrived. I sent, me, show me proof of payment or I have to disinvite her. At that point, Mike, her boyfriend, chimed in. Mike, hey, that's harsh. Rach is just family. Why ruin her trip? I snapped back. Me. I'm not ruining it. I'm protecting all of us from losing our booking. You two made the promise. It's on you, Mike didn't reply. Claire texted, Claire, fine. I'll Venmo you $500 now, and then never bring up money again, okay? I didn't trust her. I logged into Venmo and saw 5 cents. She'd clicked pay, then cancelled. She blocked me from texting her in the group. Then, I saw that Rachel had RSVP'd her own flight 2 days ago and posted a story in my tag. Cabin trip is going to be so fun. Tagging me. At that point I realized I had to protect everyone. I wrote to the cabin owner. Me. Unfortunately, I must amend our reservation back to 6 people. Rachel will not be coming. Thank you for understanding. I then forwarded messages to the group. Me. Hey all, sorry to say Rachel can't come. Can't risk the extra $500 day of. Hope that's okay. Claire exploded in a private text. Claire, you absolute jerk. You kicked my cousin out for $500. You embarrassed me in front of all of them. She was going to crash for one night. Other friends texted me privately. Some supported. Me, you had no choice. Others chastised me. Damn, Jordan, you're ruthless. Claire responded in the group chat. Claire, wow, so much for being my best friend. Nice to know you value money over my family. I'm out. Then Lena and Sam both sided with Claire publicly, calling me inflexible and heartless. Ethan tried to mediate but admitted he didn't want to be in the middle. Mike broke up with Claire over it. I can't be with someone who publicly shames their friend that way, and she blamed me. I'm now left with a perfectly reserved cabin for 6, flights booked but only Ethan, Lena, Sam and me attending. Claire, Mike and Rachel have all cancelled. My rent account is still tight from fronting that extra $500, and I haven't spoken to my best friend in weeks. Am I the a-hole for disinviting Rachel, and essentially disinviting Claire, because she wouldn't honor her promise to cover the extra fee, putting all of us at financial risk? Or should I have swallowed the cost and let Rachel come as planned? I never imagined that helping my cousin Ava launch her dream cafe would turn me into the family pariah. But here we are. Ava and I grew up a year apart, more best friends than cousins. When we were kids, she dragged me into her makeshift lemonade stand schemes. In college, I'd proofread her essays. When she graduated with a culinary arts degree last spring and told me she wanted to open the Nook Cafe in our hometown, I didn't hesitate. I'd co-found and fund it. I'd just closed on my first home and had some savings, so I offered to invest $50,000, half her startup costs, in exchange for a 40% equity stake. We drew up a simple agreement, profit split 60-40, her to me, and major decisions, leases, menu changes, hiring, firing, had to be approved by both of us. She was thrilled. I was excited to see her passion become real. Over the next 3 months, I scoured real estate listings, negotiated a favorable lease on a small shop downtown, helped design the interior with reclaimed wood and local art, and even arranged a soft launch brunch for friends and family. Ava handled the menu and day-to-day cooking. I handled permits, signage, and bookkeeping. I flew in assistants to train her baristas, coordinated social media ads, and stayed on top of the books. Opening day was magical. Lines wrapped around the block. Our signature lavender honey latte and avocado feta toast sold out in hours. Ava glowed with pride, hugging me between takes for photos with local bloggers. At closing, I tallied the day's receipts and realized we'd done nearly $4,000 in sales. We toasted with sparkling water and called it the best first day ever. But then things started to go sideways. First, Ava hired her friend Jenna as manager. Fine, I thought, until Jenna started ordering massive catering runs, none approved by me, and hired 2 untrained baristas off the street. Labor costs shot up 20% and quality dipped. Customers complained about cold croissants and lattes watered down with too much milk. When I raised the issue, Ava waved it off. Jenna knows people. She's building us a community. Then came the restructuring meeting. One afternoon, Ava sat me down at the cafe's picnic bench. She looked different. I've been thinking, she began. Since you're not here every day, I want to simplify decision-making. I'm proposing we change the agreement so I hold 70% and you 30%. You can stay on as a silent partner, get your percentage, but leave day-to-day to me. My stomach dropped. But that's not what we agreed. I risked my savings and took care of half the costs, she sighed. I appreciate that, but I'm here 12 hours a day and you're in another state. I need freedom to adapt quickly. I reminded her that our agreement required mutual approval on all major decisions. She countered, we'll keep that clause, but I just want equity change to reflect effort. I refused. She left angry, promising to find another investor who can see the value I bring. Over the next week, I got cold calls from a local investor, a childhood friend of Ava's, offering to buy me out wholesale. I declined. Why let go of the stake I'd earned? Then, 2 days before our 1-month anniversary, I found a stack of lease renewal paperwork on her desk, with my name scratched out and an alternate investor's name inserted. I confronted her. That afternoon, her face went pale. It's not finalized, she stammered. I panicked. I showed her emails from the landlord confirming the change. My heart pounded. You're freezing me out of my own cafe. Ava broke down, tears streaming. I'm sorry, I felt trapped. I thought if I got a partner who's here in town, the cafe could grow faster. You're amazing, but you're distant. I closed my laptop with a slam. Then why call me in for a meeting if you were already making decisions? You've been sharing my research, my contacts, my designs with your new investor, without telling me. She flinched. We were moving fast. I panicked about payroll. I thought if I told you now, you'd understand. I'd understand if you'd said, let's find a local partner, before you signed anything. But you blindsided me. She looked away. Am I in the wrong? And that's when I lost it. Yes, you're in the wrong. You're turning my hard work into your personal empire. You think I'm not here, but every time there's a glitch, you reassign credit. I'm done. I walked out, keys jingling on the counter. The next morning, I got a text from our accountant. Ava had frozen my access to the cafe's bank accounts and disabled my ability to log into the POS system, citing unauthorized interference. Without my knowledge, she'd petitioned to be sole decision-maker on finances, forwarding an amended operating agreement to the state. My blood ran cold. That amended agreement bore her signature alone. Mine was nowhere to be found. At lunch, I tried to log in to check sales, denied. I called our enemies-turned-investor. He sided with Ava, saying he thought I'd gone silent and left her to handle chaos. Panicked, I called the lawyer who'd drawn up our original agreement. He confirmed that without my signature on the amended docs, they were void, and that Ava's actions could constitute fraud. He drafted a cease and desist, but warned that going legal could bankrupt the business and destroy her dream. Meanwhile, Ava went public on Instagram, a heartfelt post thanking our new investor and celebrating the next phase of the Nook. Comments praised her bold leadership. It was everywhere. Local news even reposted the image. That evening, I showed up unannounced at the cafe during dinner rush. The place was packed. The new investor sat at a corner table, shaking hands. Ava smiled at me rehearsedly. I couldn't hold back. I strode to the counter and said, loud enough for half the customers to hear, "You've been cooking the books and selling me out. You're kicking me out of my own business." The cafe fell quiet. Drinks sat forgotten on tables. Ava's face crumpled. The investor's smile vanished. One customer said, "Hey man, is everything okay?" Another whispered, "Family drama's not what I came for." Ava grabbed my arm. "This is not the place." I yanked free. "Yes, it is. People deserve to know you hijacked this cafe." I waved at the dining room. "Every latte you've bought tonight is on me, but you deserve honesty." Then I stormed out. The fallout was immediate. 2 of her baristas quit. The investor texted me, "If you'd told me, I wouldn't have gotten involved." Ava blocked my number. Our family group chat exploded. Aunt Maria called me a drama queen. Uncle Phil said, "Sue her." And my mum begged me to forgive and talk it out. A week later, I filed an injunction to restore my access and to freeze the amended operating agreement. The lawyer warned litigation could take months and that the cafe might collapse before resolution. Ava, meanwhile, posted on her stories, "Life lesson: choose trust over fear." The cafe's ratings on Google are tanking, and local news wrote an editorial titled, "When Family Business Goes Sour." I've lost sleep wondering if I overreacted. Could I have negotiated quietly? Should I have trusted her vision? Or was I right to defend my investment and integrity, no matter the cost to our relationship? My friends are split. Some say I should have walked away when she first broached the equity change. Others say I should sue to protect my stake. Ava's been telling everyone I'm the villain, a controlling partner. I feel like a monster for publicly shaming her, but I also feel betrayed and used. Am I the a-hole for confronting her at the cafe and sinking the business I helped build? Or was I justified in fighting for what I rightfully owned, even if it cost me my cousin's trust? Sam. I never thought that trusting my best friend with the keys to my life would end with me questioning everything I believed in. But here we are. It started last year when my college roommate and partner in crime, Becca, called me excitedly with an idea. Let's start a dog rescue together. We'd both grown up with shelter dogs and shared a dream of saving strays, but life after graduation had pulled us to opposite coasts, me in Seattle, her back home in Austin. Still, we agreed. We'd launch Second Chance Paws, pooling our savings, flying halfway across the country to adopt and rehabilitate dogs, then place them in loving homes. We rented a small bungalow near her apartment, signed the papers for a non-profit, and set up social media. Our plan was simple. I'd handle fundraising, marketing, and finance remotely. She'd manage day-to-day care, vet appointments, volunteer shifts, and local outreach. We each contributed $15,000 from personal savings, my nest egg for a down payment, her credit card cushion, and agreed any extra donations would go straight into vet bills, boarding fees, and supplies. Major decisions required both our sign-off, and we'd split any leftover funds equally at year's end. For 6 months, we worked non-stop. I organized Instagram drives, sponsor a snuggle, local corporate partnerships, and community events. Becca negotiated with vets for discounted care, recruited volunteer walkers, and posted weekly before and after photos of our rescues, Bella the Beagle, Bruno the Bully Mix, Peanut the Parvo survivor. Donations exceeded expectations. We raised over $40,000 in our first quarter, and even local news ran a segment on our efforts. Then, 2 weeks ago, I got my first red flag. I was straightening my home office when I noticed an email from the landlord of our Austin house. Please remit $3,200 by May 1st for kennel repairs per clause 4B of the lease. My heart sank. Kennel repairs. We weren't using formal kennels, just portable exercise pens. I immediately emailed Becca. Did the landlord bill you for anything? No reply. I texted her. Urgent. Check your email about kennel repairs. Still nothing. 3 days later, a second notice. If we didn't pay by the end of the week, eviction proceedings would start and the landlord would sell off any equipment left behind to cover costs. Panic coursed through me. I transferred $3,200 from our rescues account and messaged Becca. I fronted the kennel bill. Please reimburse me by Friday. She read it and didn't respond. Friday morning, I checked our rescue's bank balance. Over $20,000 had vanished. Vanished. I scanned transactions, a $12,000 wire to Greenwood Animal Center, a $5,000 transfer to Becca's personal account, and dozens of smaller ATM withdrawals all over Austin. My chest tightened. I called Becca's cell straight to voicemail. I boarded the earliest flight to Austin. In the arrivals hall, I texted her, "Meet me at the bungalow in 30 minutes. No answer. I grabbed an Uber and sped across town. The house door was unlocked. Inside, I found empty food bowls, stacks of unpaid bills, and our volunteer roster pasted to the fridge, crossed out in red ink. On the kitchen table lay a resignation letter, addressed to me. Sam, I'm sorry, but I can't keep doing this alone. I've taken a temporary position at Greenwood to cover former clinic debts. I've withdrawn my share and wired it to myself. I've left $3,200 in bill payments so everything stays current. Please don't try to reach me. I need a fresh start. Love, B." I sank onto the floor, stomach twisting. I pulled out my phone and called Greenwood Animal Center, the very place where $12,000 had been wired. The receptionist's voice was chipper. "Yes, Dr. Greenwood can confirm we received a donation from Second Chance Paws last Thursday." Donation? I'd seen no donor campaign for Greenwood. Our funds were meant for vet bills, not funding their lobby renovation. My head reeled. I called every volunteer, each foster home, and discovered that Becca had quietly handed off all our dogs to Greenwood. No adoption fees, no paperwork, nothing we'd built together. The social media accounts had been updated to read Second Chance Paws, now a program of Greenwood Animal Center. All our followers were redirected, and she posted a heartfelt "Thank you, Becca and Sam" message. Her name first, mine buried at the bottom. I felt fury and betrayal in equal measure. She drained the bank, abandoned the mission, and hijacked our brand. I filed a police report for unauthorized withdrawal from a non-profit account, and couchsurfing volunteers now had to scramble. I learned that she'd also notified the IRS she was the sole director, meaning I was no longer legally tied to the rescue I co-founded. That night, I confronted her by calling the bungalow's number repeatedly until she picked up on her cell. Her voice was cold. "You know I needed stability," she said. "Greenwood had benefits, a salary. I'm sorry you lost your money, but I had to choose my future." I shouted, "You stole our donations intended for animals and left me to clean up your mess." She sighed. "You're going to ruin your reputation by making a scene. Just move on." I hung up, numb. Over the next few days, I reached out to our biggest donors. Some were sympathetic, issuing refunds, others closed their credit lines. Our corporate sponsor pulled out, volunteers quit. I spent $5,000 more in legal fees trying to freeze the remaining rescue account. I hired a PR consultant to alert the community that I was not responsible for Greenwood's takeover, but the damage was done. Animals are now at Greenwood, with no guaranteed plan to return to Second Chance Paws. Becca's social media is spotless, posts of happy dogs at Greenwood, grateful to our founder Becca for making tough calls. I'm the villain in every comment thread. Why drag someone who saved you down? Girl needed a job. Get over it. Meanwhile, I'm thousands in debt, preparing to dissolve the non-profit entirely. The few remaining adopters contact me in horror. Where did our dog go? I relay the bitter truth. One foster mom burst into tears. We trusted you both. Friends tell me I should let it go. Cut your losses, Sam. Others say I must sue, fight back for the animals. But either choice risks legal bankruptcy and public humiliation. Part of me wants to expose her theft and save future donors from losing faith. Another part fears making her a martyr and driving a permanent wedge between us. I keep replaying her last words. Just move on. But how do you move on when someone you trusted hijacks your dream and leaves you holding an empty leash? So, am I the a-hole for wanting to publicly expose my best friend's betrayal and salvage our rescue, even if it means tearing apart the only mission we ever built? Or should I swallow my pride, write off the losses, and let Greenwood and Becca have their fresh start? Am I the a-hole? I never thought a simple favor at work could spiral into the biggest betrayal of my life. But here I am, questioning whether I'm the a-hole who drove away the only support system I had. I work as a project manager for a mid-sized software firm. 6 months ago, our team was tasked with a high-stakes proposal for a major client, Horizons Health. We had just 2 weeks to deliver a demo and detailed timeline, and the pressure was enormous. My direct report, Ravi, was the lead developer. Brilliant, meticulous, and always willing to pull overnight shifts to hit deadlines. We'd become friendly over late-night pizza runs and celebratory beers when a sprint finished on time. One morning, 5 days before our deadline, I got an email from HR. An anonymous complaint had been filed against me for fostering a hostile work environment and unfairly favoring certain team members. My heart sank. Certain team members obviously meant Ravi. I'd been organizing late-night coding sessions at my apartment, ordering Thai food and offering to cover his Uber rides home. I'd thought he appreciated the help so he wouldn't fall behind on his tasks. But the complaint claimed I was using my managerial power to manipulate Ravi and that it made other team members feel excluded. I was blindsided. There'd been no prior feedback from anyone on the team. I called HR to request details. They refused, citing anonymity, but said an investigation would follow. I apologized in our morning stand-up, stressing that any one-on-one support was open to all. Some teammates nodded, others just stared. I felt like I'd been accused of a crime I didn't commit. That afternoon, I asked the team lead, Maria, if she'd noticed anything off. She hesitated, then said privately, "I saw you and Ravi laughing over pizza in your kitchen last week. A few people said it felt like you were going behind their backs. I offered to host group work sessions instead, and moved our coding nights to the office. But whispers persisted. Meanwhile, Ravi seemed distant. When I checked in, he said he was exhausted and would rather work alone. I respected it, thinking he needed space, but by the next day he'd pulled his code and said he'd completed his modules off-site. I didn't think much of it at first. He'd done the work and deadlines were met. 3 days later, the client presentation arrived. I logged into our shared repo and found Ravi's entire module replaced with untested placeholder code. He'd submitted a note, "Emergency, family matter, please reassign my sections." My heart stopped. There was no note to me, no heads up, to Maria or anyone. I scrambled, spending all night rewriting half the code alone. I barely slept. On presentation morning, we demoed the app. It crashed twice, hung on data imports, and the interactive charts were static images. The Horizons. Team politely thanked us and asked for a revised demo in 48 hours. My boss cornered me afterward. What happened? We gave Ravi a clear brief. I admitted I'd been covering for him and didn't realize the placeholders were live. I offered to stay late and fix it, but the damage was done. Our lead developer had bailed, and I trusted things were on track. That evening I texted Ravi, "Hey man, what was up? You okay?" No reply. 2 days later, HR summoned me for a meeting. They traced the anonymous complaint back to Ravi's IP address. They confronted me with screenshots of his messages to HR, accusing me of grooming him for favoritism and saying I should be disciplined. My chest tightened. I insisted he must have been hacked or mistaken. HR wasn't convinced. They put me on paid leave pending a conflict resolution. Word spread. Colleagues avoided me in the hallway. I saw pity in their eyes. I checked my phone and found a terse email from Ravi. "Sam, I'm sorry you got dragged in, but I can't keep working under you. I need a fresh start where mentorship is transparent and fair. Good luck with your future projects." I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I'd thought I was supporting him, giving him extra resources. Instead, he'd weaponized that kindness into a personal vendetta. On my last day before leave, I sent a team-wide apology. "I'm sorry if my actions made anyone uncomfortable. I'll respect boundaries going forward." A few people replied kindly. Most said nothing. Spent 2 weeks frantically appealing to HR for the evidence. They wouldn't show me the messages, wouldn't give me a chance to clear my name publicly. Finally, they told me the complaint would remain on file and I'd be transferred to a different department, no management duties, for 6 months. When I told Ravi, offering to talk it out, his response was, "I've moved on, please don't contact me again." I never did. Meanwhile, my transfer landed me in the legacy systems group, boring, low-impact work, with no path back to real projects. My confidence is shattered. I dread Mondays. Last week I saw on our internal Slack that Ravi was promoted to a senior developer position, now reports directly to the CTO. No mention of the Horizon mishap or his disappearing act. I cringed seeing his smug profile badge, Mentor of the Month. My own badge is gone. I've replayed everything. Should I have included the whole team in my late-night sessions? Absolutely. But I asked, everyone declined. Should I have double-checked every commit? Maybe, though I trusted my lead. Should I have escalated when he ghosted? Perhaps. But I thought giving him space was compassionate. I missed the camaraderie, the sense that we were building something together. Now I'm stuck in a dead-end role, ostracized, with my reputation in tatters, all because I tried to extend a hand to a friend. So here I am wondering, am I the a-hole for trusting Ravi and giving him extra support, only to have him weaponize it against me, or should I have built in more oversight and included everyone equally, even if they declined? Am I the a-hole? I never imagined that opening my home to a teenager in need would turn into a test of my own principles. But here I am, wondering if I crossed a line I can't walk back. Last autumn, through a local foster-to-adopt program, I met 16-year-old Maya. She'd bounced between group homes after her mother's overdose and had only vague memories of her dad who was in and out of prison. When I first met her, she sat with her arms crossed, headphones on, barely making eye contact. But over coffee and late-night talks about books and movies, she slowly opened up. I'd been single for years. My career as a civil engineer kept me busy, so I asked if she'd consider living with me on a trial basis. She agreed. In the first month, I furnished her room, stocked the house with her favorite snacks, and even took out a small loan to cover some overdue dental work she needed. I figured I could handle a $3,000 bill if it meant giving her a healthy smile. We started cooking Sunday dinners together, tacos one week, spaghetti and meatballs the next. Maya gradually let her guard down. She laughed at my terrible puns, texted her friends from the living room couch, and admitted she loved my old vinyl collection. Then came winter break. I'd planned a surprise trip to a nearby ski resort, boarding passes, hotel rooms, everything booked well in advance. I told Maya only that we'd be taking a road trip and to pack warm clothes. She seemed excited, even joined me in researching slopes appropriate for beginners. On the morning we were supposed to leave, though, Maya was nowhere to be found. I texted her, called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. I paced our apartment for 2 hours, heart-hammering, until I finally called her caseworker and filed a missing child report. The local police got involved and canvassed our building. My neighbors told them they'd seen Maya slip out the back door around 8 a.m. At noon, my phone rang. Police on the line. They'd found Maya at a friend's house downtown, in an area known for rowdy parties and underage drinking. The officers said she'd been out all night, smelled of smoke, and wasn't responsive at first. They brought her back in a squad. Car and I ran to meet them at the station. In the small fluorescent-lit holding room, Maya sat hunched on a chair, eyes red, tear stains on her cheeks. When she saw me, she burst into sobs. "I'm sorry," she kept whispering. "I just needed to get away." I felt relief, then anger. "Do you realize you scared me half to death? I could have been in an accident trying to find you." She nodded, burying her face in her hands. Back at the apartment, I left her to sleep while I washed the sheets and scraped a dinner of dinner rolls and soup into styrofoam. When I turned to check on her, she was gone again, leaving a crumpled note on the pillow. "Don't be mad, I'm with my dad. I needed to see him once before you forced me away." I froze. Maya's father had resurfaced in her case files months ago, but he was in no condition, meth addict with a violent past. The agency explicitly warned me not to facilitate contact. I searched the note for a phone number, sniffing for tears or perfume, but found nothing. Panic set in. I called her caseworker again, who said the agency had no record of any contact between Maya and her dad since placement. There was no address or phone. The agency advised me to call the police if I found out where she was. I spent the rest of the day tracing her phone's last ping, via a friendly officer, to an abandoned warehouse district. My chest tightened. Those buildings were a magnet for drug deals. That night, I waited until the caseworker confirmed the warehouse had been scouted by police for human trafficking risk. I texted Maya, "If you don't come home by midnight, I will involve the police." No reply. At 12:15 a.m., I dialed 911. By 1 a.m., a patrol car was idling outside the warehouse. Officers fanned out, called her name, and found her in what looked like a makeshift living room, dilapidated couch, flickering neon light. 2 older men shouldered in the shadows. She was curled up, clutching a battered backpack. When they asked if she was okay, she shook her head. They brought her back to the station again. This time she was formally detained until the agency could take her back into protective custody. I sat with her in the hallway, tears in her eyes. "Why did you do that? You had no right," she accused. "You betrayed my trust." I swallowed. "I was scared you'd get hurt. I'm sorry you feel betrayed, but I couldn't just let you go alone with a man who was high." She glared at me. "I hate living here. I hate you for controlling me. You told me this was a foster home, not a prison. And now you show up the cops the minute I'm unhappy." She spit the words like venom. The next day, the agency called. They'd interviewed the men in the warehouse and confirmed one was her bio dad. Transient, high risk. They commended me for acting quickly. They told me Maya would be back in my care in 2 days, though they'd assign a monitoring social worker given the incident. But they expressed concern about her emotional well-being. Detaching her from her father so abruptly could make her more distrustful. 2 days later, when Maya returned, she refused to look at me. She barricaded herself in her room, wouldn't eat dinner, and skipped school. The next morning, she left for her first period class with a bag slung over her shoulder. I followed her to the school parking lot, saw her get into a car with the same two men, and then a campus security guard grabbed my arm. "Ma'am, you can't follow students like that," I explained through tears. "That's my foster daughter." She ran off again. I was worried. He'd call me impulsive, he said, but wouldn't intervene further without a warrant. I called the agency again. They said unless I involved the police, they couldn't remove her from the car. So I called 911 a third time. This time, officers intercepted the car at a nearby intersection and brought Maya back to the station. She cried and screamed that I was kidnapping her. The police took me aside and cautioned parents and guardians need probable cause. By the time I got home, the agency was waiting. They told me Maya had been placed back with a group home, pending a reassessment of your suitability. I was devastated. After everything we'd built, she was gone. I argued I was only trying to keep her safe. They said I'd broken trust beyond repair by calling law enforcement without her consent multiple times. They'd launch a formal review into my license as a foster parent. Now it's been 3 weeks. Maya is still in the group home. I've spent my savings on legal counsel to defend my actions. My friends say I was too heavy-handed, didn't respect her growing need for autonomy. My caseworker says I should have worked through mediation, but with no contact information for her dad, I felt powerless. I can't sleep, haunted by her angry face. I miss our dinners, our laughter. I keep thinking, if I'd waited, maybe I could have persuaded her to let me meet her dad first, set boundaries. But what if he'd hurt her? What if this time she'd never come back? So I'm stuck wondering, am I the a-hole for involving the police every time Maya ran off with her dad, even when I knew he was unfit? Or should I have respected her wishes, let her choose, even if that meant risking her safety? Am I the a-hole? I never imagined that a single will reading could explode my entire family and my sense of right and wrong with one perfectly legal clause. But here I am, questioning if I'm the one in the wrong. It all began 2 months ago when my grandfather passed away at age 89. He was the family's anchor, a soft-spoken man who owned a small chain of bookstores and always made time for my stories, no matter how many times I'd told them. His passing hit all of us hard, but what hurt more was gathering in his law office for the reading of his will. My aunts and uncles sat stiffly around the polished mahogany table, my dad, the eldest son, smack in the middle. My cousin Claire, my dad's only child, sat next to him, flipping through her phone. Then the lawyer cleared his throat and began. To my grandchildren, Sam, Claire, and Peter, I leave equal shares of my estate to be divided as you see fit. However, there is one condition. Before any funds are distributed, the 3 of you must jointly complete the legacy project I've outlined in my journal. Failure to do so will forfeit your inheritance entirely, which will then pass to charitable organizations. My heart sank. I'd never heard of this legacy project. The lawyer handed each of us a sealed envelope. Inside was my grandfather's journal, weeks of handwritten instructions for restoring the family's oldest store, an aging brick and mortar in our hometown's historic district, into a community hub with reading rooms, coffee bars, storytelling events, and a scholarship fund. It was a beautiful idea, but the catch was that all 3 of us, me, Claire, and my brother Peter, had to work on it side by side for 6 months in full partnership with documented progress. I looked at Claire, who rolled her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Grandpa, but I'm in New York. I run the marketing department at that new tech startup. I don't have time." Peter, 23 and fresh out of college, sighed dramatically. "I'm living in Denver. I can't just drop everything." My dad spoke quietly. "It would mean uprooting jobs, lives. It's a lot." I swallowed, thinking back to lazy summer mornings browsing books with my grandfather. I'd just accepted a remote teaching position at our local community college. I loved the idea of bringing his last dream to life. "I'll do it," I said. Claire snorted. "Of course you will, Sam. You've always been the dutiful one." I bristled, but the lawyer reminded us the deadline was August 1st, just 3 months away if we counted the 15-day notice period. Otherwise, no inheritance for any of us. Over the next week, I flew to New York to plead my case. I asked Claire to take a leave of absence. I offered to cover her share of any lost income if necessary. She iced me with polite refusals. She'd apply for the grant funds and tell me about it afterward. She wasn't interested in working the front lines. Peter promised to visit once, take some photos, then ghosted my calls. Back home, I began restoration myself. I negotiated with the landlord, hired a small crew to repair the storefront, and reopened it temporarily for a weekend book fair, pulling in community volunteers. I documented every meeting, every invoice, every volunteer hour, and sent it in detailed progress reports to Claire and Peter, hoping to shame them into joining. No response. 2 weeks later, I received a terse email from Claire's lawyer. She rejected my unilateral decisions and demanded I cease using her name or share of funds in any publicity. She has no obligation to visit or consult on the project in person, the email read. It went on to accuse me of self-serving leadership and misappropriation of family funds. I was stunned. I'd assumed that as siblings, we'd rally around our grandfather's final wish. Instead, I'd become the villain for trying to move us forward. That Friday evening, I sent one more email, a heartfelt note reminding them of how Grandpa cherished family stories in that very shop, invited them both to join me the following Monday for a planning session and dinner on me. No reply. Monday came. I set up tables, printed blueprints, invited loyal customers and a couple of local journalists, with their permission, to see progress. At noon, I started streaming live on the shop's modest social media page, giving a tour of the scaffolding and beams. I hoped seeing it would shame them into action. By 3 p.m., the community room filled with well-wishers. At 5 p.m., Claire's name lit up on my phone, an incoming video call with her New York NY label. My heart leapt. Instead, it was her assistant. Claire says, if you proceed without her explicit approval, she'll sue you for breach of fiduciary duty once the estate is settled. She wants the inheritance, just not your unauthorized restoration, I snapped. You know what you're doing, right? You're sabotaging Grandpa's last wishes, and you risk our whole inheritance. She won't change her mind, the assistant said. You can talk to the lawyer. I hung up and left the shop in a fury. That night I texted Claire, you're welcome to join me at the pub on Main Street to talk. I'm covering your tab. No response. 2 days later, the local paper ran a puff piece highlighting the young entrepreneur single-handedly resurrecting a beloved bookstore, complete with my name, but no mention of Claire or Peter. I thought that might finally prod them. But instead, Claire posted on LinkedIn, disappointed to see my brother exploiting our grandfather's legacy for personal glory. True stewardship isn't publicity stunts. I look forward to the day I can honor his memory properly, without ego. The comments were brutal. Messages flooded my inbox. Grow up. Stop hogging the spotlight. Shame on you for dragging family drama into public view. My dad called me the next morning. Son, I'm proud of what you've done physically for the shop, but maybe this isn't what Grandpa intended. My voice shook. What was I supposed to do? Wait for them to care? We lose everything if I don't keep going. He sighed. Maybe you should have called me before you went public. I had no answer. Peter finally sent me a text. Cut your losses, Sam. Just finish the proposal, let me wire the funds, and shut down this circus. When I reminded him the will required active participation from all three, he replied, Tell me exactly what work you need me to do. I'll drop by for one weekend, but I'm not about to relocate. I realized I was at a crossroads. Push ahead alone, risk legal action from Claire and Peter, or stop, refund the community donations, and forfeit the inheritance. This weekend, I called a meeting at the shop. Neighborhood book lovers turned up to volunteer. I even had an attorney friend on standby to answer questions. I stood in the dusty aisle between sagging shelves and said, I've tried to bring my siblings on board, but they've made it clear they'd rather see Grandpa's dream die than work together, so I'm moving ahead with or without them. If they sue, I'll defend this project in court, because this was his last wish. No dramatic revelation followed. Claire still hasn't shown. Peter did visit, but spent most of his time texting, on his phone. Now I've completed half the work. New lighting, bookshelves built, scholarship fund seeded with community donations. I've spent $10,000 out of pocket. The deadline is 2 weeks away. I have until August 1st to present final documentation to the executor, but at this rate, I'll owe even more in legal fees if Claire sues me afterward. Dad told me he's disappointed I went public without family consensus. Tom, my partner, says, I'm reckless, burning bridges for a ghost. My closest friends say I overreacted by live streaming and calling them out publicly, but Grandpa's journal was clear. Make this place a sanctuary with hearts united. I've never felt closer to him than when I'm painting those walls in his favorite shade of library green. Am I the a-hole for plowing ahead alone, risking my relationship with Claire and Peter, and my financial future, to fulfill our grandfather's last wish exactly as written? Or should I have taken a step back, prioritized family harmony over the letter of the will, and let the inheritance slip away? I never imagined that a simple act of kindness could turn into the worst mistake of my life, but here I am, questioning every decision I made in the past month. It started when my neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, fell and broke her hip during one of those icy January mornings. She's in her late 80s, fiercely independent, and insists she's fine even when she's not. Her daughter lives out of state, and none of us in the building had any formal arrangement to help her. But when I found her on the floor, phone out of reach and trembling, I couldn't just leave her there. I carried her to my apartment, called an ambulance, and stayed with her in the hospital until she was settled in a rehab facility. When Mrs. Alvarez asked if I'd check on her mail, pick up her groceries, and help with her paperwork while she recovered, I agreed without hesitation. I figured I'd bake her a few casseroles, drop off letters, and run her to doctor's appointments. My boyfriend Tom worked long hours as an ER nurse, and my weekends were usually empty. It felt good to be needed. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly helping out would swallow my life. Within 2 weeks, I was spending all 7 days rushing between her home, her rehab, and my own job at the marketing firm. I'd arrive home late, eat cold leftovers at my desk, and answer Mrs. Alvarez's texts asking when her prescriptions would arrive. Tom noticed I was exhausted. He'd come home to find me nodding over my laptop, dark circles under my eyes. He gently suggested I scale back, reminding me that I was burning out. But I couldn't just abandon her when she needed me most. Then came the letter, a demand from the rehab facility for $7,200 in outstanding charges. It turned out Medicare covered only part of her stay, and the rest was her responsibility. She'd assumed her daughter had taken care of it, but her daughter hadn't known, and neither did we. When I broke the news to Mrs. Alvarez on the phone, she sobbed, apologizing for the oversight. "I'm so sorry, dear," she kept repeating. "I don't know how I'll pay." My heart broke. I offered to lend her the money, but she refused. "I can't accept charity." I told her I'd figure something out. I dipped into my savings, money I'd been setting aside for a down payment on a condo with Tom. I paid half the bill, $3,600, and told her daughter about the remaining balance. Arranging a payment plan, it felt like the right thing to do. That's when things went sideways. I woke one Saturday to texts from my boss. The big proposal I'd promised to deliver that morning was still pending, and the client was threatening to walk. I'd missed the deadline because I'd spent all night organizing Mrs. Alvarez's medical records and helping her daughter file the insurance claim. I drafted an apology email to my client and pulled an all-nighter to salvage the presentation. But my boss was furious. The next day, I was put on a performance improvement plan. One more missed deadline, and I'd be out. Meanwhile, Tom confronted me in our living room. "You can't do everything for everyone," he said softly, rubbing my shoulders. "You're sacrificing your career and me." My eyes stung. "She needs me," I whispered. "I'm the only one who shows up." He shook his head. "You're the only blood relative around, but you have other responsibilities. We had plans." I shut down. "I'll fix it," I promised, and meant it. Over the next 2 weeks, I juggled rehabs, bill payments, and urgent work tasks. My phone never stopped buzzing. I missed dinner dates, ignored Tom's calls, and finally snapped when I arrived at the rehab center to learn that someone else had already paid the remaining balance. Apparently, Mrs. Alvarez's daughter had wired the money behind my back. They insisted it was a family matter and that I should stop meddling. I felt blindsided and hurt. I had sacrificed so much, only to be told I wasn't needed anymore. When I confronted Mrs. Alvarez in person, she looked ashamed. "I thought I was helping," she said. "But you're young and you have your whole life." I threw down the remains of the check I'd bought for her, unused, still in the envelope. "Helping? I've been working myself to death. My job's on the line." "Tom's furious, and I nearly emptied my savings for you," I stormed out, leaving her clutching the envelope. That night, Tom and I had our worst fight yet. He accused me of grandstanding, of needing a hero complex. He told me our relationship was suffering because of my obsession with a woman who wasn't even my family. "You're not helping, you're ruining your life," he shouted. Froze, realizing just how true it was. I'd let someone else's problems hijack my future. By the next morning, rumors were swirling in the building. I'd abandoned Mrs. Alvarez after she'd finally gotten the help she needed. I'd stiffed her on the bill, which wasn't true, and I'd burned out my boyfriend. My boss emailed again, demanding an explanation for my chaos. I sat at my desk, trembling and exhausted, and typed out my resignation. I'd rather leave on my own terms than be fired for trying to be kind. Now, 3 days later, I'm sitting in our empty living room. Tom's packed his things. He's staying with his sister until I figure out my next steps. I broke my lease because I can't bear to stay here, and I've moved in with my sister temporarily. My savings are nearly gone and I've lost my job. I know I crossed a line, my generosity wasn't sustainable, but I saved someone who had no one, and I believed that was what mattered. So here I am, broken, bank account empty, career in ruins, relationship hanging by a thread. Am I the a-hole for pouring everything I had into helping a neighbor, even when it cost me everything I was building for myself? Or should I have known better than to dive in so deeply? Am I the a-hole? I never thought I'd end up questioning not only my friendships, but my own judgment. But here I am, staring at my phone, heart racing, wondering if I went too far. It all started 2 years ago, when my college roommate and best friend Jess and I launched a true crime podcast called Under the Radar. We met in sophomore year, bonded over our shared obsession with cold cases, and one night over pizza decided to turn our late-night ramblings into something people might actually listen to. Neither of us anticipated it would grow into more than a hobby, but somehow it did. 10,000 downloads by the end of the first season, guest interviews, small sponsorships. We thought we'd built something together. In January, midway through season 4, Jess announced she'd been approached by a literary agent. He wanted to turn our podcast into a book deal. deep investigative essays on the cases we'd covered, with behind-the-scenes stories about how we'd tracked down witnesses. My blood ran cold when I heard her describe it. "They want it ASAP," she told me over FaceTime. 6 months to manuscript. We'll split the advance 50-50, of course. I just need you to send me all your notes from the last 2 seasons. My gut twisted. All our research, interview transcripts, personal emails, court documents I'd painstakingly gathered were the backbone of our joint work. Yet her tone was breezy, as if I were an intern. I hesitated. 6 months? That's aggressive. And I'd want a co-author credit by Jess Turner and Samir Patel. She laughed a little too brightly. "Oh, Samir, they aren't going for 2 bylines. Authors want a single name on the cover. We can put yours in the foreword, maybe. An acknowledgement." I swallowed. That wasn't what we'd built together. "But," she cut me off, "I'm just telling you what they said. Look, Sam, I love you, but if you can't handle a bit of extra legwork to get the advance rolling, maybe I should look elsewhere." Fear and pride warred inside me. A 6-figure advance sounded incredible, but I wasn't willing to be pushed out of my own project. I asked for time to think. Later that day, I pored over our partnership agreement. Yes, the one I drafted with a lawyer's help, when the podcast income first picked up. It clearly stated that intellectual property was jointly owned, that neither partner could license our work without the other's consent. I forwarded it to Jess with a calm note. Per our agreement, we both sign off on any book deal or spin-off. If the agent wants to negotiate, he can do it with both of us. I expected relief, or at least discussion. Instead, she ghosted me for 3 days. Finally, Jess called, voice tight. "I'm sorry, it's just stressful. They said if we don't commit, the deal goes to someone else. I don't have time to micromanage every clause." I felt anger bubbling. "You're micromanaging my time by demanding I hand over everything under threat of exclusion," she sighed. "It's how publishing works. If you want to stay relevant, you have to be flexible." I reminded her of our late nights transcribing witness interviews, the months I covered expenses on my credit card because sponsorships lagged. "We did this together," I said. "You can't walk away halfway through and take credit and money for my work." She hung up. I texted, "I'll send you my rough drafts once you've accepted the joint author credit. Otherwise we walk." Then I turned off my phone. 2 days later, a press release hit the podcast's social media. Best-selling author Jess Turner announces upcoming true crime memoir, Under the Radar, Stories Behind the Stories. The graphic had my face next to hers, but the byline read, "By Jess Turner." No hint of partnership. Comments flooded in. "Congratulations for Jess." I felt sick, like I'd been stabbed while smiling. I tried every avenue, emails to the agent. Copied with our legal agreement, DMs to Jess begging for a call, messages to our manager. Crickets. Then last week I saw her on Instagram Live with the agent sitting beside her. He floated the manuscript's title, mentioned it'd be released to coincide with Season 5 of the podcast, hosted by Jess Turner. My stomach clenched. Season 5 hadn't even been recorded yet, and he made it sound like our show was hers alone. That night I couldn't sleep. I pored over our bank statements. Our joint account showed the initial advance hitting $250,000, half already in Jess's personal account, the rest held in escrow under her name. I snapped. At 2 a.m., I drafted an email to our distributor, our sponsors, and the agent's firm. I laid out everything. Our partnership agreement, the joint work, Jess's unilateral deal, the fact she'd used my research without permission, and her refusal to credit me. I attached scanned contracts. I bluntly asked them to correct the byline on the book and acknowledge my role in the next podcast season, or risk legal action and public fallout. Hit send. My hands trembled as I waited for replies. Within minutes, our manager replied, "Sam, are you sure you want to go public? You could sue, but that'll kill the deal. They'll blackball you." Before I could answer, the agent's assistant emailed me, "Your allegations are noted. We stand by our arrangement with Jess Turner." The sponsor logos on our website vanished. The episode for next week, already recorded, was pulled. Jess texted me, "What the hell, Sam?" I typed back, "Protecting my work. You left me. No choice." Then I deleted the text. Today the podcast's page is blank. Jess Turner is trending on Twitter. Her fans are outraged, calling me a career saboteur. Journalists have messaged wanting quotes. I haven't responded. Jess called my cell 3 times, left a voicemail begging me to retract. I haven't listened. It's been 24 hours since my email salvo. No sign of any correction to the book's byline. Our sponsors are silent. Jess's Instagram is flooded with "Am I the asshole?" comments, accusing me of greed, paranoia, ruining her dream. My heart aches. This is my best friend, the person I trusted most. But she stole our joint project and cut me out, so here I am. I see some say I could have sued quietly, negotiated, looked out for my own interests without torching everything. Others argue that if I hadn't drawn a line, they'd never have honored my role. I thought I was protecting what was mine, but Maybe I crossed a line. Did I ruin our partnership and my career because I was too rigid? Or should I have let her take the accolade rather than watch her claim total ownership of my work? Am I the a-hole? I never thought that a simple housewarming gift could unravel the fabric of my marriage, but here we are, weeks later, still picking up the pieces of a disaster I can't seem to undo. My wife, Lena, and I have been married for 6 years. We bought our first home last summer, a modest 3-bedroom cottage in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone waves as they drive by. We were thrilled. Garden parties, hosting friends for game nights, planning a nursery down the line. Then, Lena's younger sister, Marissa, announced she was getting married. Naturally, she wanted an early celebration, so she asked if we'd host an engagement party in our new backyard. We said yes, of course. For weeks, I plotted the perfect gift. Marissa's fiancé, Tom, is a chef who's obsessed with heirloom cooking. I tracked down a rare cast-iron Dutch oven handmade by an artisan in rural Pennsylvania. Expensive, yes, but I thought it would become a family heirloom, a piece that Tom and Marissa could pass down through generations. When it arrived, I spent an evening polishing its patina, wrapping it in linen, tying it with a leather cord. The night of the engagement party was golden. String lights twinkled overhead, neighbors peeked over their fences to taste the spread, and laughter floated on a warm breeze. I presented the gift with ceremony, watching Tom's eyes light up as he lifted the lid and saw its flawless interior. Marissa hugged us both, gushing about how thoughtful it was. Then Lena excused herself to fetch more wine, and I followed her to the kitchen. She was scrolling on her phone, scrolling fast. "What's wrong?" I asked. She held it out. A post. In a chef's forum with a picture of my Dutch oven, cracked, warped, covered in rust. The artisan's name was scrawled in the caption, along with a tirade about fake antique knockoffs flooding the market. Comments accused the seller of fraud, calling the pots unsafe for cooking. My heart sank. I recognized the exact markings. I'd been scammed. I tried to reassure Lena that we could get a refund, that the damage was cosmetic. Maybe we could still use it for decorative purposes. She shook her head, her forehead creasing. "You spent how much on this?" she asked. Quietly, I told her. She stared, then swallowed. "You realize that money was for our house, right? We're still paying down the mortgage," I bristled. "I bought a gift for my sister. It was an investment in her marriage." She pressed her hands to her temples. "An investment? You spent our money on counterfeit junk you didn't even verify?" I felt a flare of defensiveness. "Don't you trust me to handle things?" She looked away. "I trust you to not waste thousands on scams." We left the kitchen in stiff silence. Back in the yard, I tried to joke it off, but the mood had shifted. Marissa hugged me again and asked if we could pose for photos. Lena wandered off. By the end of the night, I felt humiliated. The next morning, I called the seller, demanded a refund, and they ghosted me. I spent hours researching, trying to authenticate the pot with experts online. Meanwhile, Lena and I barely spoke. She was curt at breakfast. She snapped at me for leaving the dishes in the sink. I snapped back about her ignoring my calls for help. The tension coiled tighter. A week later, Marissa called. She'd tried using the pot, and it started warping under low heat. "I'm so sorry," I said. She sobbed that she'd hyped it to Tom as her dream gift. I promised I'd replace it with something better. She was gracious, but disappointed. I felt like garbage, hoping a second gift would smooth things over. I ordered a high-end set of copper saucepans, but I didn't tell Lena. I didn't want another fight. When the new set arrived, the timing was awful. Lena and I were packing for our first couple's retreat to celebrate our anniversary, a weekend at a lakeside cabin. I thought I could surprise Marissa after we got back. In the rush, I left the package in the living room. While we were away, Lena's phone buzzed with a group text, photos of the copper pans on Marissa's kitchen counter, with her friends oohing over them. Marissa captioned it, "My amazing brother-in-law went all out." Someone else added, "Such a generous gift after last week's dud." Lena stared at the screen, shoulders trembling. She showed me the texts when we returned. "You did this without talking to me," she asked, voice low. "We're partners. We were supposed to budget for home improvements, future kids. You kept spending behind my back." I tried to explain. "I wanted to fix my mistake. I thought you'd want me to make things right." She slammed her phone down. "What if you'd use that money for the down payment of our dream vacation home? What if we needed it for emergencies?" I felt tears sting. "I get it, I screwed up, but I'm trying to make it better." She shook her head. "You keep fixing things by spending more. You don't think before you act." That night, we barely spoke. I lay awake listening to the ceiling creak, wondering if marriage was just a series of spending fights. The next day I woke early and packed a suitcase. I left a note. I was going for a drive to clear my head, then I'd come back. By dusk, I was parked at a roadside diner 2 hours away. I ordered a coffee and tried to map out my next step. Do I admit I'm drowning? Or do I keep pretending I can salvage this with grand gestures? I scrolled through my texts. Lena had messaged once, please come home. And again, I'm sorry, let's talk tomorrow. I typed back, and I'm sorry too, I'll be home soon. Then I deleted it. I drove back the long way, pulling into our driveway at midnight. The porch light was on. Lena sat on the steps, hugging her knees. When she saw me, she half smiled. I stumbled out, silent. She stood and wrapped her arms around me. I mumbled apologies into her hair. She pulled back, brushing my cheek. I'm sorry, I yelled. I'm just scared. Scared we're not heading the same way. I nodded. I'm scared too. We sat on the steps until dawn. I told her every stupid thing I'd spent money on this month. She listened, eyes glistening. We have to start being honest with each other, she said. No more secrets, no more solo missions. I squeezed her hand. Agreed, and I'll make it up to you together. She glanced at the house. But maybe no more expensive cookware for a while. I laughed shakily. Deal. The next morning we hosted a small breakfast for Marissa and Tom. We handed them an envelope with a gift card to a locally owned kitchen co-op so they could choose cookware in person. Marissa hugged me and whispered, "This is perfect." Tom smiled. Lena watched from the porch, then joined us. When I caught her eyes, she winked and mouthed, "Team us." So, am I the a-hole for blowing our budget on gifts without consulting my wife? Or am I the a-hole for trying to cover my mistakes with even bigger ones? I know I messed up, but I thought I was doing the right thing. Now I'm just hoping we can cook up something better, together. I never thought a family vacation could wreck us all, but here we are. Last summer, my parents decided to book a week at a lakeside cabin in northern Wisconsin. A last hurrah before Dad retires, and Mom's rheumatoid arthritis makes long road trips impossible. Mom, my sister Paige, my husband Derek, and our 2 kids piled into my parents' RV, along with my brother-in-law Martin and his wife, my sister Hannah. It sounded idyllic. Fishing, campfires, s'mores, boating. Instead, it turned into a week of whispered betrayals, hurt feelings, and a finale so explosive we're still picking up the pieces. On day 2, we discovered the lake's mosquito population was biblical. The kids were covered head to toe in bites, and Mom could barely hobble from the cabin to the dock. Dad, ever the optimist, decided a family fishing tournament would boost morale. He divided us into teams, me and Derek, Hannah and Martin, Paige, and her partner Lucas and Mom and Dad. The stakes, bragging rights, and the winner gets to choose the waterfront dinner menu that night. We all agreed, until Lucas vanished. Paige claimed he'd gone off on his own, to clear his head. We waited. 2 hours passed. When Lucas finally reappeared, he was limping and white as a sheet. Sock got caught on a rock, he sighed, waving away our concern. But when Derek and I helped him to the picnic table, we found the wound was deep, soaking through his sock. He'd bled all over a spare fishing vest I keep in the RV's storage. I snapped. Why didn't you say so? We could have patched you up sooner. Lucas's face hardened. Because someone would have asked me to stop fishing, and I was winning. He limped off before I could apologize. The mood soured, but Dad insisted we push on. By evening, Martin's fishing rod snapped under the weight of some unseen monster below. He hollered, sending his chair flying backward into the water. Hannah screamed. It seemed like minor chaos until Martin accused her of not tightening the reel before handing it to him, and she fired back that he never reads instructions. That night, over charred hot dogs and lukewarm slaw, the tournament scores were tallied. Paige and Lucas were in first, Martin and Hannah second, us third, and Mom and Dad last because they decided to bicker rather than fish. They were sober about it, though, laughed it off, and let Paige choose dinner. She demanded steak, which meant an extra trip to the store in town. Derek volunteered to go. Our kids were already asleep, and we wanted to keep the peace. I offered to tag along. Paige hissed, "We don't need tag-alongs. You guys have got enough eating already." I clenched my jaw but nodded. At the grocery store, Derek and I stocked up on ribeyes, lobster tails, Paige's indulgence, and our own staples, fresh fruit, yogurt, pasta. I saw Lucas in the next aisle hobbling along. I called a polite hey, but he looked away as if he didn't recognize me. I felt a sting. We've been close since college. When I mentioned it to Derek, he sighed. "He's upset about the fishing thing," he said. "Relax." I let it go, but I could feel the tension building. Back at the cabin, we discovered Paige had added more guests. 3 of her friends from the city. They crashed on the bunk beds in the loft, giggling till 2 a.m. about their latest promotions. And Michelin-star dinners. By 3 a.m., my toddler was crying from nightmares, and I was furious. I pounded on Paige's door. "Keep it down," I hissed. She swung it open, hair in disarray. "Chill out, you're ruining the vibe." I lost it. Tears, yelling, the whole embarrassing shebang. I retreated to my room, heart hammering, while Derek soothed the kids. Morning arrived in a haze. Paige avoided me. Hannah whispered to Martin instead of greeting Derek. Mom looked at me with pained eyes, as if I'd broken something sacred. Dad said nothing. I felt like family had morphed into a minefield. We tried to salvage it with boating, but storms rolled in. Lightning forced us back to shore, soaking us with rain. As we dashed to the RV, Lucas slipped, fell face first into muddy water. His new white shirt was ruined. He sputtered and cussed, "Great, just great," and stormed off. Paige followed, lecturing him about gratitude. Hannah and Martin jumped in her defense. I watched from the porch, hands in pockets, as mud-splattered Lucas and seething Paige volleyed insults. That night, after the lightning show, we sat around the fire pit in strained silence. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood and announced, "This is ridiculous. I'm tired of tiptoeing around everyone's feelings. We're family. We should be honest." Eyes on me, I laid it out. I was hurt that Lucas ignored me, that Paige invited extra guests without asking, that everyone seemed to choose sides rather than talk. I called out each of us, Hannah for taking Martin's side too quickly, Martin for mocking Lucas, Dad for pretending nothing was wrong, Mom for whispering complaints to me in private. Derek braced me but nodded. He agreed things were toxic. Silence. Then Paige burst into tears. "You're just picking on me because you hate my success," she sobbed. Hannah shrieked, "Yeah, you're jealous of my promotion." My heart thudded. Lucas stood, bleeding from an old scrape reopened in the mud, and spat. "You'd rather have the cabin to yourself without us dragging it down." He stumbled away. Martin followed, comforting him. I realized I'd shoved everyone away in my quest for honesty. Before I could say anything, Dad turned to me, voice low but firm. "Congratulations. You solved nothing but split us into camps. Maybe it's better if you go home with your family." My stomach dropped. Derek opened his mouth. I cut him off. "No. You know what? I'm done. I'm done with this charade." I grabbed the kids. Hans stormed into the RV. The next morning I packed our bags. Derek held my hand, tears in his eyes, but said nothing. Paige and Lucas loaded their friends' things in silence. Mom and Dad barely said goodbye. At the gas station en route, Dad handed me an envelope. Inside was a card. "Sorry things went south. Love you all. Make your own memories." And $20. $20 to cover snacks for a 4-hour drive. Now we're back home. Paige hasn't answered my messages. Lucas posted a vague Facebook status about unmasking true colors. Hannah and Martin are avoiding us. My parents won't visit. My husband says we should apologize, but I don't know what I did wrong. I hate that I fractured the family, but I can't stomach pretending everything's fine. Am I the a-hole? I've always prided myself on being the reliable one. The friend who shows up at 3 a.m. with chocolate and tissues. The daughter who bends over backwards to keep peace. The sister who never lets a family secret turn into a scandal. I never imagined that my own carefulness, my willingness to forgive and forget, would lead me straight into the most humiliating betrayal of my life. When my childhood best friend Miranda asked me to be her maid of honor, I was over the moon. We'd weathered everything together, divorce, heartbreaks, job losses, and I thought there was nothing we couldn't handle. Then she met Ian, the charmer with a crooked smile, who swept her off her feet. I didn't love him at first sight. His jokes were a little too self-centered, his laughter a little too loud, but I saw how happy Miranda was, and I wanted nothing more than to support her. So I spent the next 9 months helping plan her over-the-top wedding, the silk cerulean bridesmaids' dresses, the 3-tier cake with edible gold leaf, the violin quartet that would serenade the aisle. My sister Elise was the florist, a talented but fiercely competitive woman who always lived in my shadow. I asked her to create the centerpieces. She agreed grudgingly, but delivered breathtaking arrangements of white peonies and dark burgundy, dahlias. By the morning of the wedding, I was running on adrenaline and caffeine. My dress zipped up, my makeup was perfect, and I felt a swell of pride as I watched Miranda float down the runway of guests. Ian's face softened when he saw her, in that lace gown, and I felt like I'd done my job. Then I saw Elise slip out of the room and vanish. I shrugged it off until the ceremony began, and the flowers at the front, the pièce de résistance, weren't peonies at all but stodgy hydrangeas haphazardly arranged, with wilting carnations shoved between them. My heart sank. I scanned the pews. Elise was nowhere to be found. After the ceremony, during cocktail hour, I cornered Elise in the powder room. She stared at me in that calculating way of hers and said, "I thought I'd save us some money. Peonies and dahlias cost a fortune." I blinked. "But you agreed to do them." She shrugged. "You owe me for all the favors I've done you." I felt something cold coil in my stomach. I'd let her borrow my car, my clothes, even my bank card when her bills got tight. But I never asked her to repay me. In sabotage. I rushed back to Miranda, forced a smile, and helped her through family photographs. Everyone congratulated me on the beautiful flowers. I plastered on gratitude, but every time I met Ian's eyes, I wondered if he knew. Over dinner, the sliced filet, the garlic asparagus, I noticed Ian whispering to Miranda, pointing toward the head table. She turned, and for a moment I thought she was going to cry. Then she caught my eye and waved me over. When I approached, Ian said, Sorry to interrupt, but isn't this the florist's sister? His tone was casual, a light tease, but the room seemed to hush. Miranda smiled tightly and said, "Yes, that's her." The other bridesmaids glanced at me, at the flowers, at each other. I felt like a criminal. I wanted to defend Elise, to say she'd tried to do me a favor, but something snapped. Instead, I reached across the table, picked up the nearest burgundy dahlia, still alive, its petals velvety and cruelly dark, and crushed it between my fingers. Garnet droplets of pollen dusted my palm. A collective gasp rose from the guests. I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "No, these are not Elise's. I arranged them her way," and then replaced them last minute. I stood holding the ruined bloom and stared down Elise, who'd just entered in time to see my confession. Pandemonium erupted. People rushed the table, some to make sure I was okay, others to see Elise's reaction. She looked like a deer in headlights. Miranda sat frozen, tears brimming. Ian's expression was unreadable, his jaw clenched. The caterer's assistant scrambled to bring new flowers. Dark peonies were swapped in, petals fluffed, ribbons tied. The music stuttered, back on, but the damage was done. After dinner, in the chaos of dancing and toasts, no one asked Elise for her side of the story. Miranda pulled me aside, wiping a tear. "Why didn't you just tell me privately? Why out me in front of everyone?" I shook my head. "Because you deserve to know I fixed it, and she deserved to feel the shame she gave you." Miranda nodded but didn't hug me. Ian avoided me the rest of the night. The next morning, I woke to 6 unread voicemails. Elise's first, "You ruined everything. I should have let you pay me back." The second, from my mother, tried to reassure me that family fights happen. The third, from Miranda, said nothing but left a sob. The fourth, from Elise again, threatened to reveal my darkest mistakes, the credit card debt I'd hidden, the affair I'd had in college. I shivered. She always kept a dossier. The fifth, from Ian, reminded me that my job at the firm was on thin ice if I staged public spectacles. The sixth, from Miranda again, asked if I could come over and talk. I drove to her apartment with my hands trembling on the wheel. Miranda answered the door in pajamas, mascara smeared. She led me to her living room, where unopened wedding. Gifts lay stacked. She said, "I know about the dossier." My breath caught. She explained that Elise had tried to blackmail me last year over a messy breakup I'd confided to her. Elise threatened to send screenshots to my boss if I didn't let her run the business conference I organized for work. I paid her off, of course, but I never told anyone. Miranda said quietly, "I asked Gabe, her fiancé's cousin who works in IT, to recover the files. I know what she's been planning." I sank onto the couch. "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." She gently took my hand. "I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I know you protected me. You've always protected me." Then she paused. "Here's the thing, I love Ian, but he made me choose between you and him. He said your stunt at the reception was childish and embarrassed him in front of his family. I chose him." My chest felt hollow. "So," I whispered, "now you know." She leaned back and said something I never expected. "You have to choose too." I stayed silent, horror creeping in. She continued, "I called off the honeymoon. I told Ian we need a break, but I'm conflicted. You both mean so much to me. I don't know how to untangle this." The betrayal cut deeper than Elise's sabotage. Now my oldest friend was asking me to pick sides between her and her fiancé. I realized that if I fought for my friendship, Ian would hate me forever and might even drag my firm into scandal. If I stepped aside, I'd be losing Miranda too. That night I texted Elise, "Meet me at the old park at dawn." She arrived, bundled against the early chill, hauling a latte. I held up my phone and pressed play. An audio recording of her fell to Ian in a hushed voice, promising to make me pay for stealing the centerpieces. I watched her face blanch as my phone recorded her confession, made just last week. "You sold me out to save face," she accused. "You have nothing on me." I said calmly, "This is on the record now, and Miranda knows everything. You can either apologize for real or watch your reputation and mine go down in flames." Elise's shoulders slumped and she burst into tears. The next day, Miranda called me. She sounded small, vulnerable, the way she did when we were teenagers consoling each other over heartbreak. She said, "Your recording, it changed everything. Ian broke up with me. He said he doesn't want to be married to someone who relies on amateur sleuths and public melodramas. He moved out." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry." She sighed. "I know you're sorry, but now I'm alone and I'm terrified." We sat in silence on the phone for minutes. Finally I said, "You have me. I'll always be here." She sniffled. "I know, but am I the a-hole for choosing you over my fiancé? Did I make the wrong fight?" I swallowed. "No, you deserve to love without fear, Miranda, and you deserve friends who fight for you." She paused. "Then answer me this. Am I the a-hole? I inhaled. No, you're the bravest person I know. She didn't respond immediately. Then her voice soft as dawn. Thank you. And for the first time in days, I felt peaceful. Am I the a-hole?